This is Matthew, the arrival of the King, a study of the gospel according to Matthew. Welcome to our class. We're so glad you're part of this class. This class is presented by the 70 West Church of Christ. Now, get out your study guide. Now, what do I do if I don't have a study guide? Don't worry. At the end of this class, I'll tell you how you can get your own free copy of the study guide. Turn to Matthew chapter 5, please. Matthew chapter 5. We're going to have a very short reading today because this subject is so important that we need to talk about it. We begin in verse 27. You have heard that it was said to those of old. Now here he's referencing back to the Old Testament, to the law of Moses. That's the of old that he is referring to. Now what's the commandment? You shall not commit adultery. But I say to you that whoever looks at a woman to lust for her, if you look at a woman to lust for her, has already committed adultery with her in his heart. He hasn't done the physical act, but mentally, he's done the act. If your right eye causes you to sin, pluck it out and cast it from you, for it is more profitable for you that one of your members perish than for your whole body to be cast into hell. And if your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off and cast it from you. For it is more profitable for you that one of your members perish than for your whole body to be cast into hell. Now, how does verse 29 and verse 30 tie in with 27 and 28? The principle is get away from temptation. Get away from temptation, because if you look, you're going to be tempted. If you look to lust, you're going to be tempted. And like David, you could sin. See, it wasn't wrong for David to accidentally see Bathsheba bathing. You know, you walking around top of your house, that can happen. Now, yes, he probably should have been out with his soldiers, but he wasn't. He was there on the rooftop and walking around, and he sees a woman. But he does not just see a woman, he sees a woman. He keeps on looking to the point of desire and then to the point of sin. So whatever is causing you to be tempted, get away from it. Jesus is making that point by having this very graphic illustration. If it's your eye, plug it out. If it's your hand, cut it off. In other words, take drastic steps to get away from sin. Now, we're not saying to literally pluck out an eye or literally cut off a hand. That's symbolic. But the key there is you get away from the sin. You run away from the sin. When Joseph was tempted by Potiphar's wife, what did he do? He ran away from the sin. Now, let's look at those questions on your study guide, okay? Question 1. What commandment was Jesus interpreting? The Old Testament commandment of you shall not commit adultery. Sexual sin against the marriage. Marriage is to be holy. It's to be unique. It's between a man and a woman, between a husband and a wife. When you bring in a third person, you have destroyed the marriage bond. And working with couples the way I do, I see it happening all the time. We don't want that to be the case, because when adultery happens, the sin happens, yes, but also the hurt, the pain, especially if there's children. Question 2. How did Jesus explain the meaning of adultery, and how does it start? It starts with the thought. If you look at a woman to lust, now you might be walking down a street and something happened. I remember one time I was in Nashville and I was waiting for a light to change. And there was a young lady standing next to me, but she probably should not have been standing where she was standing. She was standing on top of a air vent grate. She didn't realize that. And suddenly the air vent grate came on. And suddenly her dress was up above her head. You know, I saw that, but I didn't lust. You know, I turned away. I could hear her trying to bring her dress back down. You know, you can accidentally see things. Accidentally see things. But when you see something and you keep on looking to the point of desire, to the point of lust, that's when it's bad. And let me just say this. 20 years ago, if you had asked me, what's the number one problem you see in marriages? I would have said, well, the number one problem is a breakdown in communication. Couples just don't know how to communicate. Today is different. If I was asked that same question, I would say pornography. So many of my couples, especially my young couples, and it's not just men, which is somewhat surprising to me, but it's also women. Pornography is there. It's so readily accessible. You can get it on your phone. You can get it on your tablet. You can get it on your laptop. And it's there. You need accountability. If you have that problem, please contact me. I have some things I want to share with you that can help you to overcome that temptation. So please contact me. I'll share an email address here shortly. When does looking at someone become inappropriate? When it becomes lust, when it becomes desire, when you want to take something that doesn't belong to you. What did Jesus suggest we do with a sinning eye, and why? Pluck it out and cast it from you. It's better if one member perish than the whole body spend eternity in hell. Other words, take steps to get away from the temptation. Why did Jesus make such a radical statement about eyes? Because it's so serious. It's so serious. As I said, I see it every week in the couples I work with. Pornography is there. Where does sin ultimately lead if it's not dealt with? It's going to lead to eternity in hell. And I don't want anybody, I don't want my friends to spend eternity in hell. What did Jesus recommend for a sinning hand, and why? Cut it off. Same thing as with the eye. It's better if one member perished than the whole body to spend eternity in hell. What was the rationale behind this graphic comment about hands? We're talking about eternity here. What will keep you from eternity in heaven? Sin. Why are our moral church choices important? Because it will lead to what where we end up spending eternity. You know, as Christians, our choices, our moral choices, will cause us either to be faithful or to be unfaithful. Question 10. Why is adultery common in our society? The commitment level in marriage is not what it used to be. The priority of marriage is not what it used to be. Today we live in what is the world calls a one-night stand society, seeking sexual pleasure. You know, they say sex sells, products, sex sells. I can remember going with my father to a garage that was working on a truck we had that we could not fix it, and we had taken it to a garage. And there was a calendar there. And as a little boy, I looked up and saw that calendar, and I thought, what has that to do with tools? There was a woman that was just barely clothed in a tiny, tiny bikini, and she was sitting on top of a car holding a wrench. What does that have to do with the tool, the wrench, or the calendar? Nothing. We live in a sex-saturated society, unfortunately. Why are people willing to harbor lust in their hearts? For the sexual pleasure. That's the reason, the sexual pleasure. What are the devastating effects of adultery? Oh, I've seen it, especially on the children. On the children, it just hurts. It tears families apart. Literally tears families apart. Question 13. What does it mean to cut off a sinful practice and get away from it? To get away from it. I have a good friend who, in his job, he has to travel. He spends several nights a week in hotels. He has with him in his suitcase an 8x10 framed picture of his wife and his children. And the first thing he does when he steps into that hotel room, he puts that picture where he can see it. Why? Because most of his fellow salesmen, they have affairs on the road. They have girlfriends on the road. He doesn't want that to happen. He doesn't want to do that against his wife and against his children. So that picture there is that gentle reminder of his priority in life. How does pornography feed the problem of adultery? It's entertaining ideas into your head. It's creating thoughts that are not healthy. And what's amazing to me is in my career, I have had the task of working with teenagers. I've even had the task of working with women who are trying to overcome this problem. It's no longer just a adult male problem. What is wrong with the argument? It's okay to look as long as you don't touch. Because if you keep on looking, you're going to eventually touch. If you keep on looking, you're going to create that desire, and that desire is going to finally convince you to take action. It's going to be desire. What would you say to a friend in a bad marriage who is contemplating an affair? It won't help. It won't satisfy the need. It won't solve the problem. What you need to do is to fix your marriage. Please, once again, contact me. I'd be glad to help. What does it mean to dress modestly? Okay, here's the big. Okay, I'm going to get on my soapbox here. This is directed mainly to the women, but I can also say it to the men too. We need to dress in a modest way. Some of the things that, I would hate to be a teenage boy growing up in today's society. You've got skirts that are just barely skirts. You've got shorts that are certainly short. You've got dresses that have slits all the way up to here. You've got low cut. You've got tight. And men, watch out for that. You got so much going on there that causes temptation. I remember I was sitting in a store one day waiting for my wife to come out of the dressing room. And this store happened to have chairs, I guess probably for husbands, to sit while they wait for their wives. And I was not eavesdropping at all. These girls were so loud that even me with my limited hearing, I could hear them. And they were talking about this mannequin. And this mannequin was wearing this dress. And literally, the slits, they had two slits, came all the way up here, up to the chest. And the girls were saying, if I had that dress, the boys would really look. The boys would take notice. That's not a good goal at all. Dress in a modest way. I don't really have to tell you what is modest. You know what is modest and what is not modest. What changes do you need to make in your reading or viewing habits to avoid temptation to lust? Oh, that's a personal question. What do you need to change in your reading habits, especially in your viewing habits? Because you see, pornography is no longer just in the magazines. It used to be in those magazines that they would keep on the other side of the counter. It's now right there on your TV screen. So what? Practical applications for living for Jesus 24/7. Let's be aware of our impact on people around us. Let's not cause people to lust. And then let's us make every effort to not lust ourselves. Because that desire will, unfortunately, in many cases, lead to action. At this time, I need your help. Please hit like and click on share, and let's get this message out to more people. That would be truly appreciated. Hey, did you know we have 2-minute classes that air every day, like 2 minutes for encouragement, full of biblical encouragement for you. Now get out that paper and pen. I've been talking about that study guide. Here is how you request the study guide. Just send me an email. Say, send me the study guide. Or if you've got questions, we want to answer your questions. So please do that also. At the 70 West Church of Christ, you're always a guest. So come be our guest. Now as we close out, it is our hope, it is our wish, it is our prayer that we all live for Jesus 24/7. May God bless